Hello guys, so today we will be concentrating more on ArrayList traversal in Java. So as we know that ArrayList in case of Java is basically some data structure which follows underlying dynamic sized array. What does it mean? Suppose you got a array size, say for example n, and you were putting input and adding elements in this array. So if the element number is becoming towards n, then internally it creates another array, and that is almost 1.5 times of n or 2 of n, that based on the Java version, and it copies all the n elements over here. So, and after that, if a new element you want to insert over here, that gets inserted over here. So it dynamically grows, and all this logic it puts on top of, it hides this complexity, and it offers few functions, and with the help of the functions makes developers life more easier. So we actually handle on top of some abstraction. So ArrayLists, another feature is, as we have discussing, like this can grow dynamically. At the same time, ArrayList can also handle with non-primitive type data only. So for an example, you are creating an ArrayList object. So we have to give like integer, which is just like a wrapper class. And this wrapper class is basically a non-primitive data type. So ArrayList basically deals with non-primitive data type. So this is just a brief introduction I would like to mention over here. Now let's go to the next slide, which is all about like how to traverse and fetch elements from an array list. So the basic thing I would like to mention over here in case of traversal, that as we have seen, like as we know, like every class and object or an object is having like something like getter and setter. So getter actually helps to access the read, actually helps to give us read only access, whereas setter actually helps us to give us authority for writing the or editing the element. Now, in case of ArrayList also, if we have an instance of ArrayList, we can get with an index, and we can get this value. So definitely one question will come that, yes, this is probably the first method of traversal of an ArrayList element. Yes, that is true. So you can use a for loop, and you can get all the methods, and sorry, you can get all the elements. But there is a downside of this approach. This is something which is very much specific to this data structure ArrayList only, because this is not something which is creating a generic approach. Why? Because for all collections, it is not going to be applied. So that's one kind of downside. But yes, this is true that we can actually get this thing or done. If we just want to access the elements, yes, we can done it. Let's move into the live code example. So I have already prepared an array list, and this array list is taking a non-primitive data type, which is string, and which is an object. So we have created an instance of array list AL, and here I have added a few team members like Sachin, Saurabh, Rahul Agarkar, Rovin, and Chetan. So let's try to try to access this all these members, data members of array list. So initially we can start with a for loop. I just placed integer I is equal to 0, and then if we just want to know like what is the length of the array list, so it always talks about the size. So there is a difference between size and capacity, although though Java is not going to open the capacity terminology. So here we will deal with size. Size means current existing number of elements which the array list is having. That is all about right now we want to focus. So that's the size, and then we can do I++. So yes, that's the complete of the for loop. And what we can do inside this for loop, we just can write a system dot out dot println, and that is there. We can say like element, or not element, you can say like name is equals to, then we can say plus al dot get I. So every time when index I comes with a new value, it starts from 0 and it will print all the values. So if we just run this program, let's see. So name is Sachin, Saurabh, Rahul, and Chetan. So this is the first approach we are doing. Let's move into the second approach and go to our board. So here we are just clearing our board, and let's discuss the second approach. So whenever we are talking about the second one, it is basically the for each loop. So it is basically for each loop, which is uh, not equivalent to the for each method. So it's a for each loop. For each and every element, we can actually get an idea, like we can get an element, and that element we can print directly, so which is going to help us a lot. So that's the strategy of using for each loop. And yes, this is true, like in this case, it is not going to be actually directly related to the for each function. Every time I'm saying for each function is different, that we will be discussing at the last. So that is going to be our fourth mechanism of ArrayList traversal. So let's try to understand what is the syntax. In case of for each loop, we have to mention like what is the data type. So suppose in our case string is a data type, so we just have to give the name or variable name, and then we have to give this colon operator. This colon operator means yes, that for every element we want to access from this array list. So S is basically the object or element of the array list. So if we just give like system dot out dot print line, and if we just print S, that is going to be fine enough. We don't need to do anything. So if we just code in the move, and if we just erase this, and we just have to mention here what the data type we are using. So here we are using actually string object. If we use any custom object, we can put over there, then the colon operator and the name of a list object or instance. So here, instead of all these things, we can get rid of, and we can directly print to the array list. Sorry, we can directly print to the element, and the element is basically S, nothing else. So that's it. We are saving it and we are running it. So we will see the same output. Yes, the name is Sachin, Saurabh, and this is and all. The third important step is very, very important. Third approach is a very, very important. Why? Because there we actually here the generic stuff comes into the picture. What that generic stuff is actually. So what I'm trying to, whenever I'm referring like it's a generic stuff, that means we are actually I am actually trying to say like this is applicable to all of the collection objects. So we can use almost this type of code for any type of collection objects. So before moving or digging into this part, which is actually part number 3, so we can say this is part number 3. So in this case, actually we have to understand like few hierarchies. So let's think that this is our array list object, which is actually internally implement list interface. This list interface implements, the collection interface, which is the root of all the collection object. And this collection interface implements iterable, iterable, iterable interface. So we are this approach actually here we want an iterator instance, which we can get with this array list object itself. Why? Because array list object in itself implements list interface. List interface implements collection interface. Collection interface simply implements iterable interface. So when ArrayList object implements list interface, that means it already implements this, and this. So which helps us to give an iterator object. So with the help of ArrayList instance only, with the help of ArrayList instance only, we can get iterator object. Now, why this iterator object is important? Because this iterator object actually gives us two method which will help us for to iterate. One method is has next, another method is next. Next. So these two methods, what does they do internally, we will discuss. But before that, we need to understand how we can get that iterator method. Now, as we are mentioning that iterator method we can get from the ArrayList object itself. Why? Because it implements all these interfaces. So let's, try to understand that if we are having ArrayList interface, and if we just do al dot iterator, then it actually gives us an instance of iterator. Okay, an instance of iterator. You can say it IT. And with the help of this IT, we can get these two methods and we can work on that. So has next method actually says whether we are having any elements in the array list next or not. And next method actually points to the element which is on the next. So if we just jump into our example, as we are mentioning, first we need an iterator object. So I'm just writing an iterator, and then IT is equal to al dot iterator. That's fine. The help of this iterator object, we need to create an while loop, and where the termination logic we will put over here, that this while loop will get terminated if it doesn't have any element. So has next pointer actually says like it has any elements or not. So with the help of this has next, if has next is true, becomes true, then it will be in the body of this loop. And here actually we will say IT dot next. And here we will this, but here this next is basically pointing to the, at the very beginning, it is going to point to the first element. And after that, it is going to point to the second element and then third element. So it's kind of a pointer which is pointing to the element. So it is recommended that never use this next pointer twice in this loop. Otherwise, it is going to be messy. It is going to be out of control and will give some results which is not expected. So if we want to go iterate one by one, so with the help of this next pointer, we can point to all these objects. Now here, when I'm referring that it's an object, that means basically I'm trying to say like, yes, it's an object. So we don't need to, if we want to make some internal operation, we need to go with a type casting. So for an example, I just want to make some operation on top of this. Say, for example, I am taking a variable string, and this string is basically taking the next object. Fine. Okay. And I want a typecasting over here. Okay. Now, with the help of this s, I just want to compare that this s is equals to an element which exists in this array list, say for example Robin or not. Fine. Now in this case, yes. So now in this case, if it is equal to this, I just want to say iterator to get removed. Okay. Or else I just want to say, okay, iterator, you can print it. So I want to, don't use this next element again, next pointer again, because that is not going to, always keep one next pointer in this loop if you want to go through one by one. So this is what exactly I want to do. I want to delete this thing during iteration. See, you can see like the Robin is not there. So one interesting point of what I am trying to address here is like, this is one of the approach which is very important, because here we are accessing the array list elements, at the same time we are deleting it also, and it is not raising any issues regarding on concurrency. So that's why this approach is a very robust in that sense, because any other approaches we have discussed till now is not going to offer this type of features or facilities. So whenever you are accessing the elements, you can also delete it. So let's move to the next topic. Sorry, let's move to the next approach, which is the last approach, which we also can get from the iterator object itself, and that is nothing but for each method. We earlier we have seen a for each loop, and now we are going to see the for each method. So in the case of for each method, as I am saying like it is giving by iterator object only. So we can, with the help of this instance, that is ArrayList AL, we can get this for each method. And the syntax is looks like that. If X is your variable, you can just give an arrow, and you can put like your system dot out dot println over here, and you can put X over there. Okay, sorry. Instead of this, you can put any function also, that is going to be fine. So let's just move into this stuff. So I just want to delete all these things because it's not going to help us in this approach. We just need AL dot for each. Sorry, for each, and then we have to say, for example, X is our variable name, and we just want to system dot out dot say, for example, here we just want to print only X names. We have not mentioned the name parameter here, so only Sachin Saurabh is going to come. Sachin Saurabh Rahul and so this is the 4 approaches we have discussed here. So guys, if you have any question, you can put your question or comment to the comment section. It will be great if you just help us with like and sharing this video. Thank you so much.